So, first of all, I'm transgender. That is fine. I'm very happy and silly. There you go.
What's your favorite thing about yourself?
I'm transgender.
That's your favorite thing about yourself?
Yeah.
What's your least favorite thing about yourself?
That I'm violent.
That what?
That I'm violent.
You should see your hair right now.
All right, guys. So with the GOP finally getting smart on proposing legislation to basically reduce the amount of kids that are actively being transitioned, whether it be socially, chemically, physically, by woke parents and woke medical professionals and woke psychiatrists across the country, it's videos like this, okay, that really do provide a prime example of why is it that children need the ability to sue not only doctors, okay, but also parents, basically anybody involved in transitioning them before the age of 18, okay, because a lot of these kids don't have a chance, right? They have no chance whatsoever because they have parents who sincerely believe that if a child tends to like things that are associated traditionally with the opposite sex, then that means they're transgender, right? And then they go on this full-blown like crusade to transition their child, and then they post it on social media for clicks and likes, okay? It's like a new status symbol, okay? It tends to be for, upper middle class white people, right? I'm just keeping it 100 with you. It seems to me that they're the ones that are on TikTok the most, that are basically, again, having designer children by transitioning them at a young age, again, for clicks and likes and woke virtue signaling points. It's really kind of crazy. And I think this situation right here is kind of one of those situations in which this mom sincerely believes that her son is a girl, okay? And she started transitioning her son at the age of 2, allegedly, based off the signs that were there. And I want to react to her telling her story about how she found out that her boy was actually a girl, and then we're gonna go from there. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so first of all, I will say that the process, the journey is ongoing and probably will be for potentially her entire life. But here's how it started. So she was designated, assigned, observed male at birth.
You mean your son was born a boy, okay? He was born with, XY chromosomes with male genitalia, okay? He was born a boy. Again, this language of assigned, right, observed, it's just, it's silly, man. They're trying to change the whole English language to capitulate to their worldview that biological sex is just not a thing, right? It's not a thing. It doesn't exist. It's 100% made up. This is what they're trying to do.
And until about 18 months, didn't really, know too much, just kind of was raising 2 kids, working full time, not really paying attention to what was going on. And at around 18 months, she started showing signs of like really being interested in things that her sister had and had in her closet, and wanting to play dress up and wanting to put on lip gloss. And
maybe because if you're a child and you have a sister and you observe your sister playing with things, again, you're a child, you don't understand that, okay, maybe your older sister is a girl, and that's the type of things that girls tend to play with. Maybe you're gonna want to play with those things because, again, you're a child, right? You don't really understand that, those things are for girls. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are a girl. It just means that those are the things that they tend to like to play with because they see that their sister is playing with those things. Maybe that's it, right? I don't think that there's much more going on than that, in my opinion. I don't know, but I'm just saying, children tend to kind of take on the behaviors of those around them. Like, for example, I'm just putting this out there, okay? I might be wrong, but I'm just saying. Boys that tend to grow up with a lot of sisters, okay, that grow up in a household full of women, no father, they tend to take on more feminine traits, okay? And the reason why is because they grew up around a lot of estrogen. They grew up around a lot of women and girls, and therefore they're going to take on the behaviors that they grow up and that they see. That's why in, a situation like this, that's why you should have a strong father to correct, those behaviors early on to say, hey, this is not what boys are supposed to play with. This is the toys that boys are supposed to play with or whatever. But even if they choose not to play with those toys, it's okay. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're the opposite sex or opposite gender or whatever. Just my opinion.
And when she would see fingernails, she would want her fingernails painted too. And, we thought it was cute. No issue. We had no issue with, her wanting to do those kinds of things. And then around the age of 2, things started to progress at a quicker pace. And
2, right? 2.
And so each time that we would go to pick her up from preschool, she was fully outfitted in dresses and jewelry. And so I will say I was super stoked that we had such a wonderful childcare center that she was in, because she was allowed to, experiment with her gender and play dress up and do those kinds of things.
Red flag, right? Red flag. At the childcare facility, the boy was allowed to experiment and to play dress up. So it seems to me, I'm just saying from what I'm hearing here, it's not just the child, it is also the environment that they're in that is pushing them in a direction that they want the kid to go in, just because the kid likes things that are traditionally associated with the opposite sex, instead of actively trying to correct that, right? Instead of actively pushing back against it. Again, a kid is a kid, a child is a child. They don't know. It's up to the adults to push them in the right direction. But if you don't have any adults pushing them in the right direction, of course they're going to continue to go in a certain direction. And this is not just specific to the transgender conversation, right? For example, boys, okay, really young boys or whatever, sometimes, they'll engage in behaviors that people can define as homosexual behavior. Doesn't mean they're actually homosexual, doesn't mean they're gay. It just means that boys are just doing things that boys do. They just playing with each other. They don't know any better. But again, if you observe that, that's where, again, you got to have a strong father, right? Or an environment where you have responsible parents and adults telling them, look, this is not what boys are supposed to do, right? This is not what you're supposed to be doing. Don't do that. 99.999% of the time, it's not going to happen again. And the boys are going to grow out of that because they don't know. They're innocent. They don't know anything. But again, you have people out there that think that even just the slightest sign that, hey, they might be transgender, that means they're trans, right? Maybe it's an opportunity to, who knows, put them on TikTok and make some money. I'm just saying that is kind of the motivation nowadays, in my opinion.
And have access to them. So when I would go to pick her up from preschool, like I said, she would be dripping in, just jewelry and clicky shoes and all kinds of stuff. And getting her to take that off to go home was usually a pretty gnarly struggle. And then around the age of 4, she started wanting to wear like leggings and headbands. She had this one headband she was completely attached to that she felt, I look back on it now and think to myself, gosh, I wonder when she put that headband on, she thought to herself, people see me for who I am. No one's going to misgender me now.
I don't know if the headband has anything to do with misgendering. I don't know how the child can even comprehend misgendering at 4 years old. Like, do they even know what that means? Again, a lot of this seems to be stuff that, again, parents are just kind of pushing on their kids, more so than kids actually really believe in that, because they don't know. They really don't know. I don't think a boy wanting to wear leggings and a headband means that they're a girl. That is something that they will probably grow out of with age and with time. Okay, it might not be 4, it might not be 6, it might not be 8, it might not be 10, but I think that you need to give it some time, right? I don't think you should be pushing them to say, hey, no, you're going to live your life as the opposite sex simply because they have some preferences to play with toys that, or to wear clothes that traditionally are for the opposite sex. That to me is just ridiculous.
And so it progressed. It just kept moving in that direction.
Because you wasn't trying to stop it, right? You wasn't stopping it. Was you giving any pushback? Were you saying, no, this is not what you're supposed to do? Here, you got to wear this. You need to wear that. It doesn't matter what you like, okay? This is what you're going to wear. No, you were probably supporting it, right? You were probably supporting it.
And with more and more things that started showing more and more signs. She would say, when I wake up tomorrow, I'll be a girl. And we were kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. And my husband and I would be like, we gotta figure this thing out. And so kind of for that final test, my husband decided, you know what, we're going to figure this thing out. We're going to tap into this and see what happens. So he said, I'm going to coach a t-ball team and I want her to be on it. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. Well, that didn't go over so well. She not only hated T-ball, she hated the uniform, she hated the hat. We found everything in the trash multiple times. She was, you couldn't get her out the door to go play on Saturday mornings.
Wait, okay, so because the child doesn't like playing sports or T-ball, right? They don't like wearing a uniform. That automatically means that, oh, well, they must be a girl. That's the final test, right? That is the test. They don't like to play T-ball. There are plenty of girls, actual girls, that like to play sports and that like to dress up like boys, but that doesn't make them a boy, right? Because again, if you apply this logic to the opposite sex, to girls, right, who are traditionally referred to as tomboys, then it automatically means that they must be a boy. Which, I mean, hey, that's basically what they're saying now, right? They're basically saying that tomboys, you know, they're boys, right? This is what they're doing. It doesn't make sense. We had a lot of this stuff figured out decades ago, and the wokes have came through and made it more confusing, right? We've always dealt with children who don't necessarily have traditional preferences. That is not a new thing. The way we dealt with that in the past is that we didn't try to transition them, right? We didn't say they were the opposite sex. We let them grow out of it, right? We pushed them in the right direction, and 99.999% of them grew out of it, right? No transitioning needed. No hormones needed. No social none of that stuff needed. We've already dealt with this. We've already solved this problem, this issue. But again, the wokes have made a problem out of something that is not a problem. We already had a solution for it for society. It's called having a strong household, strong parents, and a strong man in the house. That's what it was, right? But apparently, again, that's a rarity nowadays.
And so eventually I thought at one point, well, okay, well, what if I let you wear your leggings and a tank top underneath, and we can, as soon as the game's over, you can take your uniform off? And she was like, okay. So she wore the headband. She didn't wear the hat. She wore the headband. She wore the clothes underneath her uniform, and she would go to the game and she would stand there. And as soon as it was like game over, she would rip those clothes, you know, that uniform off and stand and proud in her tank top and her leggings. And very shortly after that, she told us she was a girl. And we believe her.
Again, when I was growing up, hey, I told my parents I was a Power Ranger. Right? I was a Power Ranger. I was a superhero. I was Goku from Dragon Ball Z. Okay, I was all types of things. But that doesn't mean that that's what I was. When I got old enough to realize that, hey, that's not who I am. I don't have superpowers. I can't go Super Saiyan. Right? You know, it was terrible. It was terrible to actually, you know, be in touch with reality and to realize that that's not me. But hey, it wasn't me. I just don't think that kids should be telling their parents who they are instead of the other way around, at least until kids are old enough to actually really understand this stuff. Her, you know, 8-9-year-old is clearly not old enough to really understand and grasp this stuff. But again, the unfortunate reality is that you have these parents who, you know, for whatever reason are afraid, okay? And I understand that. There's another TikToker, her talking about this, her saying that, you know, she's doing it because she's afraid that, you know, her child may harm, you know, himself because he's not transitioning, right? If you don't push him through transitioning, then he might harm himself, even though there's no real evidence to suggest that's the case, that's actually true, or that transitioning is going to solve that issue. She's afraid. So I kind of get it from a certain perspective, right? But in my opinion, it's not one of those things that's harmless, because a lot of times what happens is that, you know, kids start puberty blockers and hormones, you know, as preteens or when they get into their mid-teens, and that stuff is not reversible. It's not reversible. Again, she does say in another TikTok that she doesn't want the surgery before 18, and that if any doctor is recommending any type of surgery, you know, before 18 or whatever, like bottom surgery or something like that, then run away. So again, the mom is somewhat reasonable, right? A little bit, okay, if you can give her that. But it's like, you do understand that it's not just the surgery. It's the hormones, okay, the puberty blockers. Those things can do permanent damage to your child. And if they decide that they don't want to move forward with this, that they're not actually really a girl, which statistically speaking, chances are they're not gonna go on with this for the rest of their life, then they may be permanently damaged. And then who's going to be at fault for it, right? You're going to be at fault because you let a child tell you who they are rather than you pushing them in the right direction. And this is why parents that do this, that push this on their children, should be sued by the children who grow up to then regret transitioning. because they don't know any better, right? They can't consent to this stuff. The parents and the doctors and the psychiatrists, they do know better. And a lot of these, individuals are just pushing kids into this stuff because of woke virtue signaling points. Again, if you are a parent with a transgender child, that's easy money on TikTok, right? Easy views, easy money, easy fame. And that's what a lot of these parents are doing. They're transitioning their kids for clicks and likes. And I'm not necessarily saying that this is what this parent is doing, but at the same time, to me, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of pushback. There's a whole lot of, using her child to, again, get views, clicks, likes, money. When, at the end of the day, statistically speaking, her boy is very likely to grow out of this. Let's just hope that the parents realize it or see it before the child undergoes procedures or hormones or therapies that are irreversible or potentially irreversible, and that will harm the child for the rest of his life. But hey, it's not my child. It's not my child. I just do feel bad for kids that, hey, they don't really have much of a chance because the parents don't really want to push back against, the woke agenda, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.